watched the last debate, you know that he's the eye candy of the family.
Right.
He was so thrilled when the women of New Hampshire described him as eye candy. So ladies of Iowa, what do you think? I mean, I think he looks pretty good. You know, we've had really interesting and fun experiences on this campaign, and one of the things that Frank got to do was he was interviewed. Well, let me just ask, how many of you have ever heard of the magazine Tow Times? Not T-O-E, T-O-W, Tow Times. Well, okay, there are no tow truck drivers here, obviously. You see, my husband Frank started out as a tow truck driver. And so there's this magazine called Tow Times for tow truck drivers. And they discovered that a presidential candidate has a husband who was a tow truck driver, so they did a big spread on Frank in Tow Times. So check it out. Pretty cool. I have to say, Frank and I are also really grateful to all of you for not just showing up today, but we're grateful to you for taking me seriously. As you see, when I started this campaign in May of 2015, I launched my candidacy for the presidency of the United States, and it was 17 out of 16 candidates. I say it that way, 17 out of 16, because nobody had ever heard of me. In fact, less than 4% of you had ever heard my name. The pollsters wouldn't even ask for my name, and everybody completely wrote me off. Like you didn't, actually. You showed up. This is my third trip to Oskaloosa. I've been all across this great state, and people showed up in restaurants and dining rooms and living rooms and town halls, and you listened. And so here we are, 6 days before the caucus, 5.5, depending on how you count. I'm counting every hour now. And we have a great ground game here in Iowa. We have a great ground game in New Hampshire and the early states. We have leadership teams in 25 states. We're on the ballot in all 50 states, something a lot of governors who are running can't say. In other words, we have built a campaign to go the distance, and you send me out of here with the wind at my back, and I will go all the way. So I'm here to ask for your support today. You know, I was thinking that it feels like the world has gone crazy sometimes, you know? I mean, it feels like the world has gone crazy right now, in the middle of this election. I mean, we have on the Democrat side, we have a socialist, an avowed socialist, leading in the polls in Iowa, and his ads have music in the background, Simon and Garfunkel's, they've all gone to look for America. Wow, I mean, who would have guessed that 5 years ago? And then on the other hand, on the Democrat side, we have Hillary Clinton. She has escaped prosecution more times than El Chapo. Really? Sean Penn ought to really interview her, I think. That's on the Democrat side. Then on the Republican side, we have Donald Trump. I mean, wow, covered by the media 24 hours a day. No wonder he's high in the polls, but here he is casting himself as an outsider. He's the ultimate insider, actually, folks. He's made billions of dollars buying people on the inside of the political system and freely admits it. He's a crony capitalist, folks. He's not going to challenge the system. He is the system. And by the way, the media, the polls, the pundits, they've all decided. They've decided how this thing is going to go. It's a two-man race here between Trump and Cruz. They've already decided who's going to win. Except here's the thing. The last time I looked, the people of Iowa hadn't started voting yet. Last time I looked, Iowa tends to surprise. Last time I looked, the polls at this point in the presidential races in the past have never been right. In fact, if they were right, we would have had a President Howard Dean. We would have had a President Rudy Giuliani. We would have already had a President Hillary Clinton. And we never would have had a President Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or Ronald Reagan. In other words, I think the establishment and the media are trying to take your job away from you, but I think your job is to vet candidates and win on the field and cast your votes in the caucus, and I'm counting on all of you. I'm going to tell you another story about how crazy the world has become, how crazy this country has become. A story about why I'm running for president, why I say to my fellow citizens, all of you, we have to take our country back. This happened in August. I went on a combine ride with a soybean farmer. Now, I had never been in a combine, I have to tell you. Combines are really cool. I mean, not only is it cool to climb up the big tall ladder, you know, and get up way up there in that cab, but it turns out that combines are pretty high-tech pieces of gear. And I'm just looking at this computer screen in the combine farmer's cab, and it has these soybean fields laid out nice and straight, and across these fields are these little squiggly blue lines. And I said, what are those blue lines? And he said, oh, those are waterways. And I said, well, I'd like to see one of these waterways. So he drives his combine, and we get to a waterway. And you know what it is? It's about as big as this table, and it's a patch of green grass, about that big. There's obviously moisture under the grass, because the grass is really green. And he says, that's a waterway. I said, you mean, is that one of those waterways that the EPA now controls? Yeah, the EPA now controls 97% of the water in the state of Iowa, ladies and gentlemen. And every one of those squiggly little blue lines in that grassy patch, the EPA now controls. And I said, do you know what that means? He said, no. Do you know what you're supposed to do? No. Do you know what the rules are now about that waterway? No. Who are these people at the EPA who control this little grassy patch of grass? Because I tell you what, I trust that soybean farmer and his combine a whole lot more to manage that grass and protect his family and protect his community and protect his crops than some nameless faceless bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. You see, we've been living with this, folks, for a long time. We've been living with government getting bigger and bigger, more and more powerful, more incompetent, more corrupt. The EPA controls 97% of the water in this state. Wow. Well, let's talk about incompetence. We learned yesterday that the Department of Homeland Security is now admitting that they have no idea who overstays their visas in this country. They have no idea. If you have a visa and you overstay it, they don't know who you are until they can't do anything about it. And we learned yesterday that the Department of Homeland Security 12 years ago was given a pile of money and a mandate to build a system so that they could keep track of who overstayed their visas. And 12 years later, the money is gone, and they are still in, and I am quoting, the planning phase. Why do we put up with this, ladies and gentlemen? You know, this country has always been a place of possibilities, limitless possibilities. We have never been a country that accepted what is and we can do better. We've always taken on the big challenge. I certainly know that this country has been a place of possibility for me, because you see, I've traveled and lived and worked all over the world, done business, done charity, done policy work all over the world for decades. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that it is only in this nation that a young woman can start out the way I did. Typing, filing, answering the phones for a 9-person real estate firm in the middle of a deep recession in the late 70s. Go on one day to become the chief executive officer of what we turned into the largest technology company in the world and run for the presidency of the United States. That is only possible in this great nation. But along the way, I must tell you, I have been told to sit down and be quiet by a lot of people. Sit down and be quiet, don't rock the boat, settle for the way things are, don't challenge the status quo. And I'm running for president because I think that's what the American people are being told now. And I think we've been told that for a long time. Please sit down and be quiet about our God, about our guns, about the abortion industry. Settle, just settle for a government that is not only more and more powerful, more and more expensive, but more and more corrupt and more incompetent. Just settle for it. Just settle for a nation where we have record numbers of men out of work, record numbers of women living in poverty. Our young people don't know the American dream is real anymore. That working families' wages have stagnated for decades. We're destroying more and more small businesses and family-owned businesses and farms, even though it's those small and family-owned businesses and farms that create 2/3 of the new jobs in this country and employ half the people. So in other words, we're destroying the job creators, and by the way, we're settling for all that. While the rich get richer, the well-connected get better connected, the big get bigger, and the powerful get more powerful. That's what's going on. And we're being told not to challenge a system where, honestly, we have professional politicians, people who have been in politics all their life, run and win, run and win, run and win. And yet, they'll say whatever they need to say to win, but they don't ever really deliver anything, do they? sophisticated consumers of politics, ask yourself this question. How long have you sat here in Iowa and had presidential candidates come through, and what have they talked to you about? They talk to you about the same things every election. We're going to secure the border. We haven't for 25 years. We're going to reform the tax code. We haven't for 25 years. We're going to care for our veterans. We haven't for 25 years. We're going to, actually reduce the size and scope of government. We haven't. It's gotten bigger and bigger for 50 years. We've talked about all these things, ladies and gentlemen. Let's reform Social Security. We haven't done that either. You pick your issue. We've talked about it every cycle, and it hasn't gotten done. You see, I think we can get all these things done. But we're not going to cut our government down to size and hold it accountable. We're not going to hold politicians accountable. We're not actually going to solve our festering problems that have been around for decades unless we do something different. And here's what I think we need to do different. I think we need to remember who we are. I think we need to remember what we were intended to be. This was intended to be a citizen government. We the people. And it is not we the people anymore. The truth is, power has been taken away from the citizens of this nation and concentrated into the hands of government bureaucrats and professional politicians. Power, money, and decision-making is concentrated in the hands of the few. The government and the politicians don't work for us anymore, although we pay for them. And maybe you think those are harsh words, but I'll tell you what, in survey after survey and poll after poll, here is what is unmistakably true. 80% of the American people now have figured out the government doesn't work for us anymore, politicians don't work for us anymore, 80% of the American people have lost all faith in their government, 80% of us think we have a professional political class of both parties that cares more about their own power, position, privilege, and ambition than on getting anything done. So you know what? We've all figured it out. It ain't working for us anymore. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm fed up. And I'm running because I think we have to take our country back. I'm running because I think we have to restore a citizen government. So I'm here because I'm going to ask you, as caucus goers in Iowa and citizens of this great nation, don't sit down and be quiet. Stand up. Stand up with me, fight with me, vote for me, because citizens, we have to take our future back. We have to take our politics and our government back. Citizens, we have to take our country back. That's why I rolled out this blueprint. Now, this blueprint is a set of things we have to do first. It's not the only things we have to do, but it's the first things we have to do to take our country back. And I want to just touch briefly on a few of these before I open it up for your questions. But before I do that, let me tell you why I wrote it down. Why did I put it in a blueprint? Because I actually want you to hold me accountable. You see, I come from the same world you come from. In our world, we know that talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. You know someone's character not by what they say, but what they do. And in our world, we actually hold people accountable for doing what they say they're going to do. But you know, politics isn't like that. Have we ever held anyone accountable for saying one thing one time and another thing another time? Have we ever held anyone accountable for the promises they made to you while they were running? We never do. You know, early on in my campaign for the presidency, I was asked by a reporter, kind of a sophisticated political reporter, they said, "Oh, you're not used to the level of scrutiny and accountability that a presidential candidate has to withstand." I said, "Really?" Let me tell you what I had to do as a chief executive of a publicly traded firm. Every 90 days, I had to stand up in public and report out what we had done the previous 90 days in excruciating detail and answer every question in public. And then I had to stay there in public and talk about what we were going to do the next 90 days, and the next year, and the next 2 years, and I had to answer all those questions in public. And if I misrepresented our results or our intention, I would be held criminally liable. Now imagine if we have politicians to this day. In other words, I'm used to being held accountable. And I think the citizens of this nation need to start holding their leaders accountable. So I wrote it down because I want you to hold me accountable. And I'm going to come back to Oskaloosa in a couple of years and say, how are we doing on this? Now, let me tell you a couple of the items on here. And by the way, if we don't get to your questions today, I'm going to try and get to as many as possible. I'd like you to go on to carlyforpresident.com and ask your question. We have a very cool website. You might expect a technologist to do something different. And we have this neat search engine function. And if you ask a question, what will come up is not some boring policy paper that somebody else wrote. It's going to come up as me talking and trying to answer your question. So check that if we don't get it. In order to get this government under control, in order to make sure that government and politicians work for us instead of working for themselves, we have to start by changing how the government takes your money and changing how the government spends your money. And that's what the first two items on this list are. So today, I talked about the fact that we've been talking about reforming the tax code for how long? Wow, 30 years by my count. Today we have a 73,000 page tax code. 73,000 pages. Now let me tell you the effect of 73,000 pages of tax code. As the CEO of Hewlett-Packard, I could hire, and I did, armies of accountants and lawyers and lobbyists to make all that 73,000 pages of complexity work for us. The only trouble is the 9-person real estate firm can't. The family-owned auto body shop where people start out driving a tow truck can't. You see, when government gets big and powerful and complicated, then only the big can handle it and the small get crushed. And that's why we're destroying the small family-owned businesses that make this economy grow. Complexity favors the big, the powerful. It crushes the small and the powerless. Here's another thing that's true about that 73,000 page tax code. Frank and I are fortunate. We can hire an accountant to do our taxes. And so our accountant returns our taxes to us. And honestly, I close my eyes, I sign, and I pray. I have no idea what I'm signing. But you know, at least I can afford the accountant to help us figure it out. And see, that's the other thing. When government is big and powerful and complicated, the wealthy do okay, and the not so wealthy don't do okay. And so it's not just about lowering the rates, although the government takes way too much of your money. It's about radically simplifying the tax code so that everybody is on the same playing field. So we got to go from 73,000 pages down to 3. Now, the pundits have told me, the politicians have told me, you can't go to 3 pages. Really. There is a 20-year-old plan for a 3-page tax code. It's been around forever, makes perfect sense. I suppose nobody in politics is talking about that 20-year-old 3-page tax plan. I'll tell you why. Because think about how many oxes are going to get gored when you go from 73,000 pages down to 3. You talk about challenging a system. Whoa, it's a big challenge. Now let's just suppose, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to get your help to get that thing finally passed in a moment. But let's just think for a moment. When you go from 73,000 pages down to 3, how many IRS agents do you suppose you actually need? Like not very many, right? Like you got more power in your smartphone probably than you need to do all this. But did you know that today we have more IRS personnel than we have FBI and CIA combined? Does that strike you as a problem in the dangerous times we live in? Ask yourself this question. How is it possible that for 50 years the government has gotten bigger, spent more money? By the way, that's true. Republicans and Democrats alike, no matter what people tell us, the government has gotten bigger and more expensive every year for 50 years. How is it possible that the government has more money every year and never has enough money? Because that's what the government always tells us. When we ask them to do something important, care for our veterans, we need more money. Secure the border, we need more money. Whatever it is, they need more money. How can you keep spending more money and never have enough money? Well, this is why. It's because the way the government budgets. Here's the way the government budgets. If you're a government agency and you get a budget, that's it. You never give it back. You never justify it. You own it. Nobody has control over it but you. And every year in appropriations hearings, these government agencies, they don't go on, have to actually explain what they're doing with the money they already have. No, they just hold out their hand and say, I need more, please. And they get more. And guaranteed, every single government agency makes sure to spend every single dime of their budget every single year, no matter what, whether they need to or not, so they can go ask for more. Now ask yourself this question, how do you budget? How do we all budget? I'll tell you how you budget. how every business budgets, every family budgets, everybody with government budgets the same way. You examine every dollar, right? You can cut any dollar, right? You can move any dollar. You examine every dollar, you can cut any dollar, you can move any dollar. If we could do that in the government, then we could say, wow, we don't need all these IRS agents. Let's go take the money and hire some FBI agents. But we can't do that today. The way you budget, the fancy word for it is zero-based budgeting. I call it common sense. It's just common sense. Unless we get control of the money, unless we examine every dollar, unless we can cut any dollar and move any dollar, we're never going to get to a place where we can spend less money and still have the money to invest in our priorities. Now, it might surprise you to know, because nobody else is talking about this, there has been a bill on the floor of the U.S. House to go to zero-based budgeting. It's been sitting there for a couple of years. You suppose anybody wants to vote on it? Nope. Because once again, think about how many oxes are going to be get gored when you actually have to justify every dime. Okay, we got to get those two things voted on. Now, how are we going to get them voted on? Hopelessly divided, do nothing Congress? I'm going to tell you a little story about your power and about how desperately important it is that we take our country back. Remember the scandal at the VA in Phoenix, Arizona? Remember we learned that veterans were lying, waiting for healthcare appointments. And bureaucrats were cooking the books so that nobody would find out. The citizens of this nation became so outraged by that dishonor, and that's what it is, that we flooded Congress with tweets and posts and emails and phone calls. In other words, we citizens of this nation exerted power and pressure on the politicians in Washington, D.C., and guess what? Because of all that power and pressure, this do-nothing Congress did something. In fact, in 3 short weeks, they passed a bill. And the bill said that we could fire the top 400 senior executives of the VA. Folks, that's a breakthrough, because you can't fire anybody in the federal government, no matter what they do. But nevertheless, the power of citizens got that bill passed. And the Senate passed it 99 to nothing. And President Obama signed it into law. You got that done in 3 weeks. Now, unfortunately, we all went on with our lives. And so the politicians did too. And despite all the pretty speeches and all the feigned outrage, 3 people got fired. And we now know that 307,000 veterans have died waiting for health care, and the VA handed out $142 million worth of bonuses for superb performance. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't settle for this. This is a stain on our honor. But it is also a demonstration that citizens have power when we use it. And if we don't use it, we lose it. So, here's how we're going to get those first 2 things passed. Every single week, I'm going to go into the Oval Office. I'm going to ask each and every one of you and your fellow citizens across this great nation to take out your smartphones, take out your iPads, take out your PC. If you have a flip phone, you might want to upgrade. I know you really love your flip phones here in Iowa. But you might want to upgrade, not necessary, but you might want to. But here's the thing, I'm going to ask you to take out your smart device of choice, and I will say to you, my fellow citizens, do you agree with me that that 20-year-old 3-page tax code ought to finally pass? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no. Do you think we ought to finally pass that bill for zero-based budgeting so we get control of the money? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no. You see, ladies and gentlemen, there's an app for citizen government. Technology is an incredibly powerful tool. We use this tool of technology to do silly things, like vote people off islands and decide who won the voice. I'm going to use it to do important things, to leverage your anger and your frustration, but more importantly, your common sense and your good judgment to get something done. Because citizens, we have to take our country back. So we can actually get all this done. None of this is rocket science. You know, we've been talking about securing our borders for 25 years. And what does it take really to secure a border? Money, manpower, technology. Mostly, apparently, it takes a leader who understands that talk is cheap and you got to deliver results. By the way, that is go from secretary to CEO. You deliver results over and over and over. You challenge the status quo, you solve problems that have been around a long time, and you produce. That's what I think the American people need now in the Oval Office. We can get all this done, but of course, first, we gotta win, right? We have to win. We have to win in November, so ask yourself what it takes to win. We can't have people who insult everybody, and we better have somebody who has the guts and the courage to fight against the other side. Now, you may not have decided who you wanted to support before you showed up here today, but I tell you what, every single one of you here cannot wait to see the debate between me and Hillary Clinton. You can't wait. And you can't wait because you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. I'm going to win. I am going to win because I can, unlike anyone else, I can say to Mrs. Clinton, you know what, Mrs. Clinton, you've held a lot of positions and a lot of titles, but you haven't accomplished anything in your life. You've gotten every single foreign policy challenge you're on. Yeah, you've met a lot of people, but you got most of them wrong. Vladimir Putin, we're going to change with a reset button, having met him? I think not. And Mrs. Clinton, you famously asked, what difference does it make how 4 Americans died in Benghazi? Let me tell you, Mrs. Clinton, what difference it makes. When terrorists purposefully attack an American embassy and murder 4 Americans, including our ambassador, and the next morning you stand up and you lie to the American people about it and talk about some video that doesn't represent our values, instead of saying the United States of America was purposely attacked by terrorists and we, this great nation, will seek retribution. When you do not say that, Mrs. Clinton, then you have told every terrorist and every adversary we have in this world, open season on the United States of America. That is what difference it makes, Mrs. Clinton. This is a fight, ladies and gentlemen. You know in your heart of hearts that this is a pivotal time in this nation's history, and we have to win. We have to have someone in the Oval Office who can actually do the job. Because although politics is covered like a sport and a game, it is not a sport and it is not a game. It is very serious now. So I will close with this set of observations. Think about what a president needs to understand. I think we better have a president who understands how to create a job, how to save a job, how to protect a job, what destroys jobs. In other words, I think we better have a president who actually understands how the economy works. I think we have to have a president who understands how the world works and who's in it. I have more foreign policy experience than anyone running. I have met more allies and adversaries than everyone, with the possible exception of Mrs. Clinton, but as I say, she did photo ops. I had private meetings with allies and adversaries alike about business, about charity, about policy. I've also held the offices available to the civilian. I've chaired the advisory board of the CIA. I've advised the NSA. I've advised 2 secretaries of defense, a secretary of state, and a secretary of homeland security. I know our military capability and our warrior class well, and I know our intelligence capability. And so I know from experience that when this nation does not stand with our allies, when we do not confront our adversaries, the world becomes a very dangerous and a very tragic place. As Commander-in-Chief, I will lead. We need a president who understands bureaucracies, because that's what our government is. A gigantic, bloated, inept, corrupt bureaucracy, and it has to be cut down to size and held to account. We need a president who understands technology. It's a tool. It's a very powerful tool, but guess what, folks? It's also a weapon. It is a weapon being wielded against us by our enemies. And right now, we are losing that war in cyberspace, so we better have a president who understands that and understands what to do about it. But finally, we need, I think, somebody who understands what leadership is and who has actually led. You see, leadership is about making a tough call in a tough time and standing up and being held to account. And we have people running for president in this race who have never made a tough call in their lives. They have trafficked in words. They're good lawyers, they're good politicians, but a tough vote is not the same as a tough call. A leader is somebody who challenges the status quo, not accepts it the way it is, not operates within the system, not takes advantage of the system. A leader challenges the status quo. But finally, the most important thing that I have learned about leadership, I learned a long time ago. When I was a secretary, I used to think that the leader was whoever had the big office, big title, the big parking space. And then I got a little older and wiser, and I observed that there were people with big offices and big titles and big egos to go along with them, and they were not leading. You see, leadership has nothing to do with the size of your office or even the shape of your office. It certainly has nothing to do with your ego. A leader is a servant. A leader serves. A leader's highest calling is to unlock potential in others. My highest calling is to restore citizen government to this great nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I offer you my service as a leader. Stand with me. Fight with me. It is time to take our country back. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sir.
What are your plans?
Oh, you are AARP. You guys show up at every event. I say the same thing every event.
Well, I think everyone else wants to hear.
I know. I'll say it again. You guys are, I gotta give you a lot of credit. You are determined. And you have awesome vests and awesome t-shirts.
Thank you.
All right, so these people are concerned about security, so am I, so are all of you. So let me start with this question. How long have we been talking about reforming Social Security? 30 years, probably. And once again, in this election cycle, just as in 2012, just as in 2008, just as in 2004, you have candidates out here telling you about their Social Security reform plan, right? So far, none of them have ever gotten it done. You will notice that it is not on this list, not because it's not important. It's not on this list because we got to get these things done first. And let me tell you why, and then I'll tell you how I'm going to approach Social Security. These things have to be done first because if we cannot do these basic things, if we cannot get control of the money, if we cannot secure our border, if we cannot repeal something like Obamacare and get the government out of the healthcare business, if we cannot stand for the character of this nation and restore religious liberty, if we cannot defeat our enemies like ISIS, then no one has any faith in government. Because these are the basic things that we have to have as citizens to trust the honesty and competence of our government. So these things I start with because they restore citizen government and they hold government to account. And until we do those things, I don't think 80% of the American people who distrust government are going to trust us to touch their Social Security. I wouldn't. But when we get these things done, and by the way, these things need to be done in the first term. When we get these things done, then it's time to get around to Social Security. Here's what I'll tell you about Social Security. There are 3 or 4 really good ideas about how to reform it. And picking one and shoving it down your throat, I'm going to come to the American people and say, through the power of technology, let's look at these options. What sound good to you? We're going to engage in a dialogue about how to reform Social Security. We can do that in the 21st century. But I will promise you this, there's some principles. One principle I have is Social Security is a contract that was made between the government and its citizens. It was a commitment that was made. And I'm going to honor that contract and keep that commitment. So for example, it's not okay that Congress decides you don't need your COLA increase, but meanwhile they need a raise. That's not okay. That's breaking a contract. But the second principle that I'm going to adhere to is that if you are 26, you look roughly 26, 25, okay? If you're 25, or you're 55, or you're 75, or you're 95, whatever age you are, whatever dollar you have put into Social Security, it belongs to you. It is your money. It is not the government's money, and they cannot take it away from you. Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to see David Delayden apologize to you for tricking you about those transparent videos?
Do I want to see when?
David Delayden apologize to you for tricking you about those Planned Parenthood videos?
No, because I wasn't tricked. Look, here are the facts. Yes, amazingly, investigative journalists were indicted in Houston, but here are the facts. Planned Parenthood engages in late-term abortion, partial birth abortion, and alters those abortion techniques to harvest body parts. That's a fact, and I will never sit down and be quiet about that. And it is also a fact that Planned Parenthood is a political operation. Taxpayers are funding a political operation that pours millions of dollars in political contributions into pro-abortion candidates' political coffers every single year. Forget abortion for a second. Forget whether or not you're disgusted by the sale of body parts from unborn children. I am. I think most Americans are. But just set that aside. Is it fair for taxpayers to be funding a political organization? They don't fund any other political organizations. So, guess what? In a President Fiorina budget, there will not be a single dime for Planned Parenthood, but there'll be lots of money for women's health. Oh, look at that.
This is my friend's baby I'm babysitting.
Well, you look like a good babysitter. He looks pretty happy. Yeah, okay, his first caucus event.
In your zero-based budgeting, are you making an allowance in there for paying back the national debt? And not only just the national debt to us, but apparently, I guess, we owe China as well, don't we?
Yeah, we owe, most especially, we owe that little guy money right now, right? Look, what are the only ways that we can reduce debt? I mean, we know the answer to this. There are only two things we can do. Grow the economy, cut spending. Grow the economy, cut spending. Grow the economy, cut spending, that's it. And that's why the first two items on this list are the first two items on this list. Because we will never grow the economy unless we get this 73,000-page tax code under control. It is crushing in its complexity. We are killing the job creators in this country. Here's an interesting stat, so you know this isn't just hyperbole. See, I'm not a politician. I think facts actually matter. So, last year, we created, in this economy, the great entrepreneurial spirit of this nation. 400,000 new businesses were created. Wow, that's awesome. Because those new businesses are what create 2/3 of the new jobs. And we gotta put people back to work. But last year, 407,000 were destroyed. In other words, we're destroying more than we're creating, and that means we're not creating enough jobs, and that means we're not growing our economy. So we gotta start with getting that crushing load of the tax code. And of course, we also, the reason we gotta get control of the budget, the money, is so that we can say to that EPA guy who owns the grassy patch, guess what, you don't have money anymore. Sorry, you don't have money. It's the only way we get control of these rule makers, and that's the only way we spend less overall, which we must do, and still have enough money, for example, to care for our veterans, and secure our border, and invest in our military so we can keep our nation safe. Grow the economy, cut spending. That's what we gotta do. Okay, how would I rebuild the military? Very important question. Let's just start with some basics. We have to have the strongest military on the face of the planet, and everyone has to know it. And so what that means very specifically, and we know specifically what that means. It means a certain number of battalions, and a certain number of brigades, and a certain number of naval vessels. We know what the numbers are, and it means we have to invest in the nuclear triad. You see, I actually know what that is, although Donald Trump clearly doesn't. We have to invest in these things. We have to stop laying off our soldiers. Obama is laying off soldiers. We cannot lay off somebody at the EPA, but we can lay off a soldier, really? So we have to care for our veterans, we have to invest in those who serve, we have to have the right equipment and the right technology. All of that takes money. But here's the other thing, and I'm prepared to make all those investments, which is why zero-based budgeting is so important. Because unless we get control of the money, we don't have enough money to invest in the important things, like having a world-class military. But here's the other thing, and let me just say, having been in the Defense Department for a long time, it doesn't just mean throwing money at things. Because if you look inside the Defense Department, there's something that we've measured for a long time, the tooth-to-tail ratio. Tooth, fighting men and women, technology, tip of the spear, weapons, tail, bureaucracy. Well, guess what? The tooth to tail ratio is as bad as it's ever been. And we're in a dangerous world. In other words, investing in the military means investing in the tooth and reforming the tail, because there are a lot of bureaucrats in the Pentagon too. There's one other thing we have to do. We have to have a commander-in-chief who honors, who respects, who values, who listens to, who lifts up those who serve. And we have and I don't care whether we're talking about the cop on the beat or the soldier in Afghanistan. Those who serve must be valued, lifted up, listened to, honored, and cared for. This president does not do that. I will, so help me God.
What's your plan for defeating ISIS?
Hey, plan for defeating ISIS. Thank you for asking. One of the items on the blueprint here, because we have to defeat ISIS. They have declared war on us, let's be clear. So, we gotta win that war. The way to defeat ISIS is to deny them territory. Their territory, their caliphate, is where they get their potency, their legitimacy. And so that territory has to be denied to them. By the way, I will remind Mrs. Clinton on the general election debate stage that she handed them their territory. She and Barack Obama handed them that territory when they declared victory in Iraq, and against the advice of every single general, withdrew every troop and left vast swaths of territory and weaponry right there for ISIS to go get. So we got to take the territory back. Now, we have a whole set of allies on the ground. They're not perfect, but they are our allies in the fight against ISIS. The Jordanians, the Kuwaitis, the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Bahrainis, the Emiratis, the Kurds. All of these nations I know, most of them I've been in, and every single one of those nations that I just mentioned, their leaders have asked us for very specific help to help them fight ISIS. The King of Jordan, I've known him a long time, has asked us for bombs and material. We haven't provided them, I will. The Egyptians have asked us to share intelligence with them. We're not, I would. The Kurds have asked us to arm them for 3 years. We haven't, I will. The point is, we have allies who are prepared to help us in this fight, but we have to support them. We have to give them leadership and weaponry and resolve. But here's one other thing. Those allies don't believe they can trust us today. And the reason they don't believe that they can trust us is because we entered into a terrible deal with Iran, and Iran is their arch enemy. You see, Mrs. Clinton, climate change is not our most pressing national security threat. ISIS is, followed closely by Iran. Iran is an adversary to all of those countries that I just named, and to us as well. So on day one in the Oval Office, in addition to standing up that alliance and supporting them and leading them, on day one in the Oval Office, I'm going to make 2 phone calls. The first is going to be to my good friend Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, to reassure him that we will stand with the state of Israel always. And the reason that phone call is important is because having been in and around the Middle East for a long time, I know that every single one of those Arab allies that I just mentioned, even though they disagree strenuously with Israel, they watch how we're treating Israel. And they see us treating our friend Israel in this way and conclude that they cannot count on their friendship with us. So it's a signal. But the second phone call I'm going to make is to the supreme leader of Iran. Now, I have to tell you, I don't know him, I've never met him, I've never been to Iran, and I don't think I am his cup of tea. So, I don't think he's going to take my phone call, but he is going to get my message. And the message is this: New Deal. New deal with the new president. Until and unless you open every military and every nuclear facility to real, anytime, anywhere inspections by our people, not yours, we, the United States of America, will make it as difficult as possible for you to move money. I know how to do that. We cut off their access to the global payment processing system, and I will tell to any bank that does business in Iran, you will not do business in the United States of America. I don't need anyone's permission or collaboration to do it, and I will do it, because we must stop the money. the hundreds of billions of dollars of money that is flowing into Iran and is being used now to fund terrorism, military buildup, and a nuclear buildup, which is most definitely not peaceful. And with those two phone calls, every ally we have in the world and every adversary we have in the world is going to get a message, a real reset. Wow, the United States of America is back in the leadership business, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we belong.
I want to know if you're going to promise to stay by your agreement, that no matter how much the pressure gets, that we do not violate their innocence.
So you know, ma'am, I appreciate you asking that question. And the question was, will you stand by our babies? I think you have seen, so far in this election, there is no more fearless fighter for life than Carly Fiorina. And I have the Planned Parenthood protesters and the condoms being thrown in my face and women screaming at me that I don't care about women to prove it. There is no more fearless fighter. And no, ma'am, I will not back down. Because this is not only about innocent life. This is about the character of our nation.
What I was wondering about, everybody knows, what I'm wondering about the other is, I've been there 3 years and lost my last one. The government told me that they were going to help me out and the kids taking that over budgeting and all that stuff, and saying they're going to take a certain amount of money out of my check. Next thing you know, they take everything I've got, and I'm basically living from what I pull off the street to survive day in and day out. And when I call them to try to get more money, it's like they're saying, we don't know you, we don't do this, you're just nothing. Now, how are you going to be able to have them help people that really need the help, and the idiots that don't need the help, whatever?
You know, sir, the story that you just told,
Sure.
the story that you just told is the story of a government that no longer serves the people who pay for it. It is a story of a government that is out of control. It is a story of a government that cares more about protecting and nurturing itself than protecting and serving us. It is why we must take our country back. There are a million stories like this. Obamacare is such a story. I mean, honestly. So that's why the first two items on this blueprint, we have to start by getting control of this government. One of the items on here is repealing Obamacare. Why is that so important? I mean, I've heard a million stories from people about how health care they used to have that was good is gone, or they're paying so much money. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a walking, talking pre-existing condition. I understand we gotta cover pre-existing conditions. I truly do. My husband Frank and I buried our daughter Lori. She was taken by the demons of addiction. So I understand that there are places in our healthcare system where we don't invest enough, not in mental health, we don't invest enough, we don't invest in caring for people who really need help. But I also know that this isn't working. Health premiums are up, emergency room visits are up, we're throwing more and more people into programs on Medicaid, and then doctors won't accept Medicaid, and we're cutting payments to people. It's not working, but here's the other reason why we have to repeal Obamacare. I'll tell you in a moment what I replace it with. We got to get control of our government. You see, the story this gentleman just told, let me tell you another story. Remember when Nancy Pelosi told us that we needed to pass the bill to know what was in it? Remember that? Remember that? Let me tell you what was in it that most Americans don't even know because they don't want you to know. Buried in the tens of thousands of pages of Obamacare is the federal government takeover of the student loan business. If you didn't know that, don't feel bad. Most people don't. What the heck do student loans have to do with health care? Well, they just tucked it in there. The federal government took over the student loan business, and now the federal government tells every student who takes out a loan from them that you're going to pay between 4.5% and 8% interest on your loan. And meanwhile, the government is spending between 1.5% and 2.5% interest on its debt. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the federal government is making money off of student loans. And I'll guarantee you, the money isn't going down to pay down the debt. This government is taking over, from the waterway, to the student loan business, to the healthcare business, to serve you, who have been paying your taxes and expecting help and not getting it. We can do this, ladies and gentlemen, but we're not going to do it by continuing to elect politicians and insiders who will not challenge this system. Citizens, we got to take that measure. Yes, ma'am.
I guess more of a personal question, more of a policy question. As a woman involved, in government involved, mostly around mailing mails, what kind of challenges have you faced because of that involvement?
So the question was about, as a woman, what kind of challenges have I faced? Because I grew up in a man's world in a different time. And I have to tell you, one of the reasons I married my husband Frank is because when I got out of the secretarial pool and I finally got an MBA and I went off to work as a brand new entry-level salesperson at AT&T. That was when it was 1 million employees, the Bell system. Some of you remember that. You don't, you're too young. A lot of people here do. And a lot of people didn't take me very seriously. I was this young woman in a man's world, but I had this problem. I had this customer problem, and I was determined I was going to solve it. And I don't take no for an answer. I really don't. Maybe you figured that out about me. So I kept looking for someone to help me, and finally somebody said, "You got to go meet this guy, Frank." So I went and met Frank, and he was like a technical expert, and he took me seriously, and he solved my problem, and he was really cute, so I married him. I have been called every P word in the book. I've been called a bimbo. When I was a CEO, I was called a bimbo. I've been called a bimbo on the presidential campaign trail. I've been called the other B word too. I've had surrogates. One of the leading candidates here, Ted Cruz, has a major surrogate here in Iowa who said that I was playing the B card. I'll let you think about what that means. I was playing the B card because I told my story. So yeah, it's different for women, but here's the thing. I've been underestimated all my life. I've gotten used to it. But I also know that most people will give you a fair shot. And so I look for the people who are going to give me a fair shot. And I don't much pay attention to the people who call me bimbo or that other B word or the B word. And the voters of Iowa have given me a fair shot. So what I would say to you as a young woman, don't get a chip on your shoulder because the people who tell you what you can't do or shouldn't do, know what you can do and go do it. Because there are enough people who will take a chance on you. Yes?
Do you have an opinion on the Department of Education and its vast overreach?
I'm sorry,
See, do you have an opinion on the Department of Education?
the Department of Education, yes, I have more than an opinion. I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. So, another reason we got to get control of money. So, how long has the Department of Education gotten bigger and bigger? The answer is 50 years. How many Republican politicians have come out here and talked to you about we're going to abolish the Department of Education? Never happened. As the Department of Education has gotten bigger and bigger, more and more power, more and more money, what has happened to the quality of our education? It's gone down. So what do you conclude from that? Money in the Department of Education has nothing to do with the quality of education. That's what I conclude. I think it's pretty obvious why we got to get control of the money, so we can take that money out of the Department of Education and move it to states, communities, classrooms, families. Because when people have choices, their kids have choices. And all these programs, some of them will come out under Republicans too. Common Core, No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top. They're all bad ideas. Because guess what they are? They're big bureaucratic programs coming out of Washington. And by the way, there are a bunch of interests who helped write those programs. In the case of Common Core, guess who helped write it? The textbook companies and the testing companies. It's called crony capitalism. Folks, it's alive and well under Republicans and Democrats. We have to take our country back. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up here so we can mix and mingle a little bit. Maybe you want a photo or, by the way, I have a little rule. just to warn you, one photo, one vote. Seems fair. Seems fair, okay? So we can bark over the photo line. But listen, I am not going to stand here and tell you that this is going to be quick and easy, but I am going to tell you it can be done. And I am going to tell you it has to be done in the first term. But I actually don't think you're looking for quick and easy. I think you're looking for leadership and results. And what I'm looking for is citizenship and commitment. So I'm going to count on your common sense and your good judgment. I'm going to count on your wisdom, your courage, your determination to do what needs to be done now. Because in your bones, you know this. This is a pivotal time. And in your bones, you also know what Americans have always known. That power dispersed into the hands of the many, power, money, decision-making dispersed into the hands of the many is more competent, more compassionate, wise, and just than power and money and decision-making concentrated in the hands of too few. And we have had too much power, too much money, too much decision-making concentrated into the hands of too few for too long. So, you can count on this. I will not fall. I will not be quiet. I will not sit down, and I will not settle. And so I need you to stand with me, fight with me, vote for me. Citizens, it is time. We must take our future back. We must take our politics and our government back. Citizens, join me. It is time to take our country back.